You would have thought throughout World War II that all sides of a country's military would be pulling in the same direction towards victory over the enemy. For example, it's inconceivable to think that the Royal Air Force would have gone rogue and not supported the British Army or the Royal Navy. But there was, during the conflict, a real tension between the German army, as in the Wehrmacht, and also the SS, the paramilitary group expanded by Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, to become one of the most feared forces of the 20th century. The SS were the guards of the concentration camps, but they also had a military wing, known as the Waffen-SS, who Himmler thought would be able to gain the same prestige and recognition as the army. But the ordinary German soldiers and experienced military officers couldn't stand the SS, and there was even a battle in which Wehrmacht defectors fought alongside the Americans, their enemy, to defeat the Waffen-SS. But why did the Wehrmacht soldiers hate the SS so much? Now, Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, had expanded the paramilitary organisation from just a loyal bodyguard force who would protect Hitler and high-ranking Nazis at public engagements, and he wanted to strengthen the group's position against established German military groups. In late 1939, Himmler persuaded Hitler to allow him to establish an armed SS force known as the Waffen-SS. He was, to begin with, only allowed 4 divisions, but soon the number would swell to more than 20 divisions. The armed force was made up of around 500,000 men and more, and they even had their own command and operations structure that would come into rivalry with the army. The SS would, throughout World War II, encroach on the authority of the Wehrmacht, which caused significant tension between the groups, and some members of the established military would later be involved in plots against the life of Hitler, and they wanted to also oust Himmler and the SS at the same time, having the members of the group arrested. One of the first reasons why the SS were resented by the Wehrmacht is because of their arrogance. The Waffen-SS saw themselves as elite, and they had been originally created as Hitler's personal ideological army, who were loyal to Hitler and the Nazi Party, and not specifically to Germany. They were taught to believe they were Aryan and racially superior, and with this, they were more fanatical Nazis, and they also believed that they were much better than your average German soldier. Regular Wehrmacht soldiers often regarded this attitude as very arrogant and somewhat insulting. Senior officers were First World War veterans with decades of service, yet the new kids on the block were throwing about their weight. Wehrmacht men considered themselves trained professionals and had the army running through generations of their family. But many of the SS recruits, despite being just Aryan, were young and heavily politically indoctrinated, and they were more focused on ideology than they were military discipline and also rules. Also, there was at the time a rivalry with regards to equipment and supplies that they were given. This especially caused problems when there were shortages and when the Germans were facing defeat. The Waffen-SS often were given newer tanks to test and take onto the battlefield, as well as priority with rations and winter clothing. Some also managed to get first access to captured loot too. There were many Wehrmacht divisions who, especially on the Eastern Front, found themselves poorly supplied, freezing, and also very hungry, as they were running very low on rations. Some in the army believed that the SS were being favoured over regular soldiers who were suffering. One Wehrmacht army officer complained about this in 1942 and said, "They do not fight better than us, they simply look better and eat better," referencing their uniforms, which were considered much smarter than the garb worn by regular army soldiers. The tactics used by the Waffen-SS also angered some of the Wehrmacht, and they regarded their military skills as wasteful at times. The SS were known to the Allies for being some of the most ferocious fighters who refused to retreat. But inside German circles, they were also known for attacking without proper planning, and this led to them accepting high casualty rates. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, was even given command of the Army Group Upper Rhine and Army Group Vistula, and he failed in this role miserably. Himmler was not a military commander, far from it, and this led to further damaging reputations for the SS within armed forces circles. To the SS, fanatic aggression was a virtue, but to the army they thought this was reckless and stupid. This meant the Wehrmacht units often had to rescue SS groups who were trapped and cover retreats of SS soldiers that the SS refused to admit were necessary. Of course, this led to losses for the army too, and by 1943 there were a number of Wehrmacht commanders who were beginning to refuse to work alongside SS divisions because of the high casualty rates and also tactical carelessness. Now, the reputation for atrocities and massacre also led to some ordinary soldiers refusing to be involved in actions alongside the SS. The atrocities carried out by them led to retribution and revenge attacks affecting everyone. The Waffen-SS carried out massacre after massacre, especially on the Eastern Front, and when they destroyed villages and slaughtered civilians, partisans and local resistors retaliated, not just against the SS, but against all German units in a region, including Wehrmacht soldiers who despised the actions which had been carried out. They hated this because it made their lives far more dangerous and meant they had to be even more vigilant to attacks, but it also damaged the reputation of the German military all around the world. But the Allies would impose harsher treatment onto prisoners of war in reprisal too. Wehrmacht veterans believed that we fought a war, they fought a crusade, and the SS fought what was an ideological bloodbath, which was often costly, upon the army. The Wehrmacht didn't also trust the SS's loyalty. To the army, loyalty was supposed to be first to Germany, then the state, then to army tradition. To the SS, loyalty was to Hitler personally and Himmler, then to National Socialism, and then to racial ideology. This meant the SS was seen as political enforcers, and not real soldiers. Many Wehrmacht officers believed that if the army ever turned against Hitler, then the SS would shoot them without hesitation, and this is exactly what happened with the July 20th plot. A high-level military coup was launched following the bombing of Hitler's Wolf's Lair, but within days and months, thousands of suspected conspirators and plotters who wanted to overthrow Hitler had been executed by none other than the SS. There has been evidence found in recent decades that Heinrich Himmler may have at some point known about the plot and even may have been involved in some part, meaning he may have wanted to take control of the Reich himself. The SS would also execute military officials who opposed Nazi policies and resisted. There was also a huge cultural difference between the two groups. Wehrmacht soldiers were traditional men who had been professionally trained. They were taught discipline, strategy and order, and they served Germany, and they could ultimately be sceptical of the regime. On the other hand, Waffen-SS soldiers were ideologically screened and were allowed to serve if they were racially pure, but they were also taught sacrifice, obedience and fanaticism, and their training focused on Nazism as much as it did fighting. They also served Hitler and the Nazis first, and they were expected to be fanatically loyal to the regime. But there was actually a time in the Second World War when the Wehrmacht would fight against the Waffen-SS. The Battle of Kassel-Itter was fought on the 5th of May 1945, and troops of the 23rd Tank Battalion of the 12th Armoured Division of the American 21st Corps, alongside a number of Wehrmacht soldiers and recently freed French prisoners of war, defended Kassel-Itter against an attacking force from the 7th SS Panzer Grenadier Division. In the morning of the 5th of May, the castle shook from machine gun fire and anti-aircraft shells, and some parts of the castle began to collapse. A Sherman tank provided support until it was knocked out by an 88mm gun, but by early afternoon things were becoming desperate for the Wehrmacht and American forces against the SS. But then later a relief force arrived and around 100 SS prisoners were then taken. So, to summarise, the Wehrmacht soldiers often hated the Waffen-SS for a number of reasons. Firstly, the arrogance of the SS, as they acted superior and ideological, and also they received at times better supplies and equipment. Their tactics were also at times reckless and caused more deaths than required, and the atrocities led to retaliations and reprisals being inflicted upon every German person. They were also loyal to Hitler and not to Germany, and they did not respect the old military traditions of the army. There was a deep distrust between the two groups and a significant quiet contempt. Ultimately, though, they were both on the losing side of the Second World War. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, leave a comment and also maybe subscribe. Once again, thanks for giving your time to watch. Thank you.